Welcome back to Fantasy Football. Today, it's now time for the trade chart presented by Dave Rich. You can see the full trade chart on CBSSports.com. Dave gives you a value system that can help you in making trades, and it's very useful this time of year because you should be trying to improve your roster. So let's talk about some buy low and sell high candidates, Dave. And the list that you gave us here includes Cordarrelle Patterson as a buy low guy. So we don't know exactly when he's expected to return from a knee injury. He is eligible to play, I believe, as early as this week.
Nope, next week.
Next week. Okay, so next week will be the full. This is the fourth game that he has to miss after being placed on IR. So coming back from the knee injury by week 9, can you get a top 20 running back out of Cordarrelle Patterson?
I think it's possible, Jamie, because Cordarrelle was good before he got hurt, and the Falcons' run game has gone inefficient since then. Collectively, the running backs are averaging 3.8 yards per carry. There's no one there that's going to remove Patterson from a big opportunity, and their schedule when he comes back, the Chargers, the Panthers, the Bears, the Commanders, the Steelers. All right, maybe the Steelers isn't the easiest matchup, and the Commanders could be tough too. But then the bye comes after that. I think he can give you an infusion of help at running back as soon as he comes back. And he's been posting videos on his social media. It looks like he's going to be ready to go by the time week 9 comes around. I'm counting on that. If I can turn Ezekiel Elliott into him, if I'm not starting Ezekiel Elliott, I would do it. I would give up Deontay Johnson or Brandon Cooks. I might even give up waiting for Keenan Allen to come back and get right in exchange for the upside of Cordarrelle Patterson.
Would you make that trade, Ezekiel Elliott for Cordarrelle Patterson?
I would not do the Zeke part. I think I would definitely do the Cooks or the Deontay Johnson part. I'm just not sure anybody wants those guys. But those two guys, if I can get somebody that I'm trading to somebody who's kind of desperate, like you can start him this week, I'm not sure how much longer you can start him after that, that's the kind of guy I want to give up for Patterson.
Makes a lot of sense, and hopefully when he does come back, it's not a timeshare, and they're not just going to continue to use multiple guys because he's been better than Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley and those running backs, but there's still the Damian Williams situation looming that could maybe throw a little wrinkle into things. Remember, week 1, it was supposed to be Damian Williams and Cordarrelle Patterson, so we'll see what the Falcons decide to do there. The other buy low candidate that you have here is Amari Cooper, and you think now's the time to go get him?
He's going to get targets again, and he was getting targets with David Njoku in the first place. And the reason why now he's going to start getting more targets is because Njoku will miss a couple of games. And he's coming off of 2 underwhelming-ish types of games. He does have 4 touchdowns in his past 6. And I think that you're going to continue to see him be that number 1 guy in the Cleveland Browns offense, the number 1 guy for Jacoby Brissett until week 13 when Deshaun Watson comes back. And that's 5 weeks away. So when that happens, we're talking about a wide receiver who might turn into, certainly at worst, a number 2, maybe a number 1 if he's catching passes from Deshaun Watson, and if Watson views him as his number 1 target. So I'm getting excited about Amari Cooper, especially in PPR. I know that Zach Ertz is coming off of a bad game. If I can give up Zach Ertz to get him, I would love to do that. I'd probably give up Dallas Goedert too, Darrell Henderson, and again, the name that Heath loves to talk about, Ezekiel Elliott. If I can turn Zeke into Amari Cooper, assuming I don't need a running back in the short term, I would do it.
There's no way I'm trading Ezekiel Elliott for Amari Cooper. I would probably consider Ertz if I had another tight end.
What about Goddard? Because that was the one that
I'm
I was
not trading Dallas Goedert
sure.
for Amari Cooper.
The only thing I don't know about, because he's been wide receiver 21 on a per game basis, he's wide receiver 12 overall for the season. I wonder if the guy who has Amari Cooper thinks, I've got a number 2. Like, what are you buying low? You think he's going to be a top 10 guy rest of the year?
No, I can't say that. Even with Deshaun Watson.
I just kind of, I think
you're playing off the thought that he's coming off a bad game, so it's always the Jacoby Brissett's guy. So you
right.
just, the theory of where he's at.
I think what he's been so far this season with 3 games of basically 10 or fewer fantasy points and 4 monster games is what Amari Cooper's been almost his entire career. I do think that he could be better with Deshaun Watson. So if you've got a good record, I like the idea of trying to buy and hope he just booms in the playoffs.
Yep, it's buying low off of a bad game, not I think
right.
over the course of the
right.
season. The sell high candidates that we have here, so you mentioned this guy's name a few times, so why are you selling high on Ezekiel Elliott?
And we've been talking a lot about Ezekiel Elliott in this segment and on our podcast about whether or not he's a buy low or a sell high. And I still think he's a startable fantasy running back. Don't get me wrong on that. But he's coming off of his best game of the year with 2 touchdowns. And that's really been the whole point for his fantasy production this season. When he scores, he's good. 34% of his PPR fantasy points have come from touchdowns. He doesn't have any games with 90 rushing yards. He has 3 with 60 or fewer. He has 1 target in his past 3 games. We've seen Tony Pollard start to see more work. We've seen Tony Pollard as the more efficient running back. I would take DeAndre Swift for him. Full PPR, I would consider Christian Kirk or Adam Thielen for him. I think Ezekiel Elliott is not going to be what he's been. I think we've seen his best game fantasy point-wise last week.
If this is an Amari Cooper thing and you're selling off of the 2 touchdowns from last week and you're selling to somebody who thinks he's a high-end number 2 running back, then I absolutely get it. If we're talking about what he's been, RB 26 on the season at 11 fantasy points per game, I think that's pretty close to what he's going to be all year long. I don't know if I don't know that there's much difference really between him and about half the guys that are available on the waiver wire. He's a borderline number 2 running back.
The only thing that I do like, first game with Dak, best game of the season. Offensive line's been playing a lot better. Rushing lane should start to open up a little bit. And the thing I think that we'll see is just how much they continue to stay in this mindset of what their offense is. Is it going to be still a run-heavy offense, and that should benefit Zeke as long as he stays healthy. Brandon Aiyuk is another sell high candidate. Why?
Right, because Christian McCaffrey's there. I wouldn't say that he's a sell high if they never traded for Christian McCaffrey, and I wouldn't say that he's a sell high if we find out that Deebo Samuel is going to miss some time with what he's dealing with. But if everybody's healthy and CMC is there, I don't see how Brandon Aiyuk can continue getting 11 targets per game like we've seen in the last couple of weeks. I think Christian McCaffrey is still going to suck up a lot of work in this offense and be a big factor. And I think the 49ers defense will get better, and I don't think they're going to be trailing in games like they have in the last couple of weeks. And when they're winning, they're going to run. And that's Christian McCaffrey. That's not going to be a lot of targets to Brandon Aiyuk. I'd love to turn him into Devin Singletary. I'd turn him into Raheem Mostert if I needed a running back as well.